Welcome back to our EOC review. Today we're going to be talking about solving quadratic equations. So to solve by factoring, the equation must be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so your example here is x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. See how it's already set equal to 0? So then we're going to factor that polynomial. I'm going to use the box method to do so. So give me just a second. Okay, so I went ahead and set this up. So you've got x squared plus 3x minus 10. My a is 1, b is 3, c is negative 10. And I want to find something that multiplies to a times c, so negative 10. And when I add them together, I get a positive 3. That means that my factor that I want to be the largest is going to be the positive one. So I'm going to say 1 times negative 1 times positive 10. And that would give me 9 when I add them. Then I would say like negative 2 times 5. That would give me positive 3 when I add them. So those are the two I want to use, negative 2x and 5x. I know that x squared factors to x times x. X times 5 gives me 5x. X times negative 2 gives me negative 2x. So my factors are x plus 5 and x minus 2. So I'm going to fill those back in here. So I got, what did we say? X plus 5 and x minus 2. And then we're going to set each factor equal to 0. So we're going to say x plus 5 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. And then we're going to solve each equation for x. So we subtract 5 on both sides, and I get x equals negative 5. And then I'm going to add 2 on both sides. Those cancel out, and I'm left with x equals 2. So my answer is x equals negative 5 and 2. Then it says find the largest perfect square. So what we're doing now is we're just simplifying those radicals, okay? So we're going to find the largest perfect square factor of the radicand, and that's the number inside the square root symbol. So again, you're looking for the largest perfect square. 25 would be 5. So I'm looking for, like, can you say 16 times something to get to 24? Because that's the next one, because that's 4 squared. Can I say 9 times something to get to 24? No, because that would be 3 squared. I can say 4 times 6. So 4 would be 2 squared. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it as 4 times 6 inside there. So just break it down into 4 times 6 because 4 is a perfect square. So it says rewrite the radicand. That is ugly. Using the perfect square factor. Take the square root of any perfect square. So we're going to take the square root of 4 because that's a perfect square. So we're going to say 2. We pull that out of the square root symbol, and we're going to leave square root of 6. Okay? Because we can really write that it says square root of 4 times the square root of 6. The square root of 4 is 2 times the square root of 6. The square root method to solve using that, we didn't look at this a lot, but it is pretty easy. You take the square root of both sides of the equation to isolate the variable. So here, and this only works if what it's set equal to, so if you have x plus 5 squared, so you have something squared, and then 144, so both sides have to be a perfect square. So if we look, our left side is x plus 5 squared. We know that the square root of this side is going to be x plus 5. And we know that 144 is also a square root. So the square root of 140, the perfect square of 144 is 12, but it's plus or minus 12. Because we could do positive 12 times positive 12 and get 144, or negative 12 times negative 12 and get 144. So then we just need to solve for both. So we'll say like x plus 5 equals 12 and x plus 5 equals negative 12. So subtract 5 on both sides and I get x equals 7. Same thing here, subtract 5, but this time I have negative 12 minus 5, so I'm going to get negative 17. So my answer is 7 and negative 17. We're going to look at completing the square. No, we're not. We're going to skip that for now. Let's look at the quadratic formula. We just went through this, so I'm hoping you guys still have it fresh in your brain. Remember, the quadratic formula is opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The equation must be in standard form, and so standard form of a quadratic is that ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It has to be in standard form before you pull those a values out, a, b, and c values out. Identify a, b, and c and substitute the values into the formula. Simplify the expression, split the expression into two equations, the plus and minus, and solve for x. So let's look at what that would look like over here. So let's say this is the equation we're looking at, x squared minus 168 equals 2x. We first have to make sure that it's in standard form, so we need to subtract this 2x on both sides so that it's in standard form. So x squared, and I'm going to go ahead and put the minus 2x because that's my b value there, minus 168 equals 0. So now we've got it in standard form. We're going to identify our a value. A is going to be the number in front of x squared, so 1. B is going to be the number in front of x, so negative 2. And C is going to be negative 168. So we're going to plug that in to the quadratic formula. So it's opposite of B. So B is negative 2, so it's positive 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 168, all over 2 times a. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come to my calculator and I'm going to hit alpha y equals. That's going to give me that fraction bar. And I'm going to say 2 plus. I can't do plus or minus at the same time, so I'm just going to start with plus. And I'm going to say, okay, the square root, let's see, second, and then that x squared button will give me the square root symbol, negative 2 squared, and you have to put that negative 2 inside parentheses or it will give you the wrong answer. So anytime you're substituting, it's just good practice to use parentheses. And we're going to come down and say 2 times a, which is 1, and hit enter. So one of my answers is 14, but I know that I didn't do the subtraction piece, but I don't want to retype that whole thing. So what I'm going to do is scroll up till that's highlighted, hit enter, and then I'm just going to scroll over until I get to where it's flashing on the plus sign, and I'm going to change that to a subtraction sign and hit enter, and I get negative 12. So my answer is negative 12 and 14. Okay, so let's go back to our cheat sheet here and look at choosing a method. Factoring, let's see what it says about that. It says it works sometimes. You want to use that when the equation is easily factored. The square root method, it works sometimes. It's only going to work when those equations are set up and they're both sides are perfect squares. So you can use this when a perfect square is set equal to a constant. To a constant. All right, and then the last one that we're going to look at, we're going to skip completing the square and we're going to look at quadratic formula, that will always work. So if you only know one method to solve quadratic equations, it's the quadratic formula, because this one will always work. Use when the equation isn't factorable, or use it every time if that's the one that you like.